The celebrity world may glitter on the surface, but beneath the flashing cameras lies a shadowy side few ever dare to confront. Fame can polish an image, but it can also hide the scars of a past shaped by poverty, danger, and desperation. What many people don't realize is that for some future stars, the world of street gangs wasn't about crime, it was about survival, a fight to escape oppression, a struggle to stay alive, a battlefield where loyalty, fear, power, and downfall collided every single day. Not everyone walks out of that world with their dreams intact. Yet among the black legends we admire today, several carried a past far darker and far more human than the spotlight ever revealed. Now, for the first time, we shine a light on these hidden chapters. And trust me, these stories will forever change how you see them. Number 1. Red Fox. From the brutal edges of street life to the brightest lights of American comedy, Red Fox, born John Elroy Sanford, carved a path unlike anything Hollywood had ever seen. His raw honesty, gravel-smooth voice, and unmatched storytelling made him a legend, winning millions over through Sanford and Son and a string of hit shows. But before he became one of the most influential black comedians in history, Red Fox walked through shadows far darker than the jokes he later told. In the 1940s, life for Red was a hard, relentless grind across St. Louis and Chicago, two cities boiling with racial tension, poverty, and limited opportunities for young black men. Desperation pushed him into the only economy available at the time, the underground world of petty crime. Drug dealing, theft, and fast hustles weren't choices. They were survival tools, and Chicago's violent streets pulled him in deeper. Gang-ruled neighborhoods turned him into someone feared, respected, and deeply embedded in a network of protection schemes and illicit trades. From dim alleyways to smoky backroom bars, Red built a reputation as someone you didn't cross. He survived gang feuds, ambushes, and police chases, sometimes escaping rivals by inches. Arrests for assault and drug possession became so frequent that they followed him like a shadow long after he stepped into the spotlight, shaping how the public saw him even when he tried to bury that past. Yet hidden within those dangerous connections was an unexpected doorway, access to Chicago's toughest comedy clubs. These weren't polished venues, they were rowdy, ruthless rooms where only performers with real grit could survive. But for Red, they became a sanctuary. On those rugged stages, the former hustler began transforming into a magnetic comedian. His street-forged coolness, sharp tongue, and fearless humor captivated audiences, helping him craft a style no one could imitate. Success didn't erase the scars. His later years were plagued by tax issues, reckless spending, and the lingering consequences of a life lived hard. But through every setback, Red Fox kept pushing, kept performing, kept carving out a legacy that still shapes comedy today. When he died of a heart attack in 1991, the world lost more than a TV star. It lost a man whose life proved that even the darkest beginnings can lead to a stage bright enough for the whole world to see. Number 2. Ray Charles. Ray Charles, music legend, soul pioneer, and one of the most piercing voices in American history, carried a shadow that few could see beneath the spotlight. Blind since childhood, and raised in crushing poverty, he transformed every ounce of pain into songs that shook the world. His voice was velvet and steel, his compositions revolutionary. With armfuls of Grammys and a legacy that shaped modern music, Ray Charles became a symbol of triumph over hardship. But the glow of fame hid a far darker battle. Behind the shimmering curtains of fame was a chaotic life filled with drug arrests, crippling addiction, and dangerous entanglements with the underbelly of the entertainment industry. During the 1950s and 1960s, the very years he was reinventing soul music, Ray spiraled into the ruthless grip of heroin, the pressure cooker of a segregated music world, combined with emotional trauma, carved deep wounds that heroin temporarily numbed. In cities like Los Angeles and New York, where late-night clubs and casinos doubled as playgrounds for mobsters and drug pushers, Ray Charles became tangled in webs far bigger than himself. Heroin was not just a personal vice, it was currency in showbiz corridors ruled by people who thrived in the shadows. Arrests in 1958, 1961, and 1965 revealed an uncomfortable truth: one of America's brightest stars was drowning in addiction. Fans were stunned, the press relentless, and Ray's carefully crafted image trembled. Yet those very underworld ties kept him performing. The same criminal pipeline that threatened to destroy him also provided access to stages, studios, and networks that sustained his career. To many, his blind eyes seemed symbolic, unable to see the dangerous path he was walking or the future slipping from his grasp. But in late 1965, everything changed. Facing the collapse of his career and life, Ray checked himself into rehab. The withdrawal tore through him, but with every painful step he clawed back control. It was his declaration of war against heroin and the criminal networks tightening around him. Ray Charles emerged not just sober, but reborn. His music soared to new heights, cementing him as one of the greatest soul artists of all time. When he died in 2004, free from addiction and underworld influence, he left behind a legacy shaped not only by genius, but by resilience forged in darkness. Number 3, Sammy Davis Jr. A dazzling star on stage and a man walking the tightrope of danger behind the scenes. That was Sammy Davis Jr. to the world. He was a once-in-a-generation entertainer, a powerhouse who could sing, dance, act, and command any room with pure charisma. Rising to fame in the 1950s and 1960s, he became one of Hollywood's brightest attractions. As a core member of the legendary Rat Pack beside Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, Sammy didn't just entertain millions. He shattered racial barriers in American showbiz at a time when segregation still poisoned stages across the country. His hypnotic voice, electric footwork, and fearless charm made him a global icon. But the spotlight that crowned him also cast long, dangerous shadows. Few fans knew that Sammy's climb to fame forced him into the grip of one of the most powerful forces in mid-century America: the mafia families that ruled Las Vegas and New York. In those decades, Vegas was not merely a playground of neon and glamour. It was a stronghold of organized crime. Mob figures like Sam Giancana quietly pulled the strings of casinos, nightclubs, performers, and prophets. For a black entertainer hoping to headline these elite venues, the path was brutal. Racism blocked doors before opportunity could even knock. To survive, Sammy Davis Jr. made a choice many artists of his era were pressured into. He leaned on the mob. Those connections gave him what the industry refused: protection, access, work, and opportunities he could never have reached alone. In return, his presence on casino stages helped the mafia legitimize and launder money from illegal operations like gambling, smuggling, and extortion. Night after night, he performed in mob-controlled clubs where bright lights and applause masked the quiet machinery of crime. His success, in many ways, became a valuable asset in their underground economy. But it was a bargain that came with a heavy price. The mafia shielded him from racist threats, yet simultaneously wrapped him in obligations he could not easily break. His career flourished publicly, while privately he navigated a dangerous, suffocating web of favors, fear, and financial strain. For years, Sammy lived under the all-seeing eyes of the FBI. Agents tailed him, recorded him, analyzed every movement, convinced his success was inseparable from the mob's influence. The constant surveillance filled his life with dread, damaging his reputation and straining relationships within the industry. To some, he was a hero who survived a hostile system. To others, he was too close to criminal power. As the pressures mounted, the emotional and physical toll grew. Sammy longed for freedom, the ability to choose his own projects, to reclaim his life from forces larger than himself. Slowly, through the late 1980s, he began pulling away from the mob's orbit, attempting to re-establish a career on his own terms. But the scars remained. The stress, debt, and internal conflict drained him in ways applause could never heal. In 1990, Sammy Davis Jr. died from cancer, leaving behind a brilliant yet turbulent legacy, a man who lit up stages while fighting battles no audience ever truly saw. His life became a testament to the dangerous price of fame in a world ruled by shadows. The mob helped elevate him to legend, but its darkness followed him to the end. Number 4. Cab Calloway. When the spotlight glowed brightest, it often hid the darkest truths, and nowhere was that more evident than in the life of Cab Calloway. With his booming voice, electric stage presence, and flamboyant charisma, he dominated the jazz world of the 1930s. Minnie the Moocher turned him into a global sensation, and his daring style helped redefine what a black performer could be in an era crippled by segregation. To audiences, he was a whirlwind of music and magic, but behind that dazzling energy lay a world of danger few ever imagined. Cab Calloway walked a thin, treacherous line between fame and the mafia's shadow. During the 1930s and 1940s, Harlem and Chicago pulsed with organized crime. The glamorous Cotton Club, Cab's most iconic stage, wasn't merely the birthplace of jazz legends, it was a mob-controlled empire disguised as a nightclub, a polished front used to wash profits from bootlegging, gambling, and other illicit operations. Cab didn't land there by luck. He stepped into that world because the entertainment industry offered black artists no safe path upward. The biggest stages, the best-paying venues, and the most influential rooms were all under the grip of powerful crime syndicates. For Cab, performing meant more than singing under bright lights. It meant navigating threats, keeping silent about what he saw, and understanding that every performance came with invisible strings attached. His close ties with Harlem's mob circles gave him protection from racist violence and allowed him to reach heights that would have been off-limits otherwise. In return, his fame and talent became tools for the underworld, a star whose brilliance brought money, influence, and prestige to those pulling the strings. Yet the price was immense. Mafia pressure occasionally stifled his creative decisions. Rumors about his associations followed him relentlessly, coloring public perception and limiting opportunities. At times, he risked losing everything simply for refusing to bend to mob expectations. Cab's life became a constant balancing act. One wrong step could end a career, or worse. As the 1950s passed and the mafia's stranglehold on entertainment weakened, Cab Calloway slowly distanced himself from that world. He poured his energy into music, films, and stage productions, leaving an unmistakable mark on American pop culture. From the Blues Brothers to jazz history books, his legacy endured, brilliant, vibrant, unforgettable. Cab Calloway died in 1994, leaving behind more than a catalog of timeless music. His life told the story of an artist who danced between glory and danger, whose genius shone even when surrounded by secrets the public never fully saw. Number 5. Adam Clayton Powell Jr. In the public eye, Adam Clayton Powell Jr. was a trailblazer, one of the first black lawmakers to wield real influence in the U.S. Congress, a fiery voice for civil rights, and a charismatic figure who even left his mark in radio entertainment. To many, he was the embodiment of progress during America's turbulent struggle for equality. But behind the polished speeches and political victories lay a far darker, lesser-known chapter of his life: Powell's deep entanglement with Harlem's criminal underworld. In the 1940s and 1950s, Harlem was both a cultural sanctuary for Black America and a bustling arena for organized crime. Drug networks, gambling rings, and protection rackets thrived just beneath the surface. It was in this landscape of ambition and corruption that Powell operated, not only as a political leader, but also as a power broker navigating shadows few dared to enter. Working in a community where legitimate power and illicit influence collided daily, Powell forged alliances that strengthened his control. He accepted bribes and protection money, using the funds to support his political campaigns and civil rights initiatives. In return, he shielded drug and gambling operations from scrutiny, acting as a political safeguard for criminal groups operating in Harlem's backrooms and alleys. His rise wasn't built solely on speeches and votes, but also on deals whispered in smoke-filled rooms. These alliances offered benefits many never knew existed. Crime syndicates provided him with financial backing, insider information, and muscle against political rivals and racist threats. But each favor pulled him deeper into a world where loyalty came at a steep price. His growing power drew attention, not only from Harlem residents who whispered about his hidden partnerships, but from federal authorities determined to uncover the truth. By 1960, the facade began to crack. Powell was prosecuted for tax evasion, a charge rooted partly in his murky financial links to underground figures. The FBI and other agencies intensified their surveillance, monitoring his campaigns and personal finances with relentless scrutiny. Public opinion shifted as people questioned whether Powell was a champion of justice or a politician dancing on the edge of corruption. In his later years, Powell sought distance from the shadows, refocusing on civil rights work and community leadership. But the past never fully released him. His legacy, powerful, influential, and deeply complicated, remained forever stained by the underworld ties that once helped secure his throne. Adam Clayton Powell, Jr. died in 1972, leaving behind a story shaped by brilliance and darkness, a civil rights icon who rose through courage and through crime. In the Harlem of his era, the line between justice and corruption was razor thin, and he walked it every day. Number 6. Don King. Behind the flashing cameras, million-dollar contracts, and roaring boxing arenas stands a man whose past is darker than any backstage corridor, Don King. Known worldwide for masterminding some of the biggest fights in history, King didn't rise from privilege or polished boardrooms. He crawled out of Cleveland's harsh streets, where poverty, racism, and violence shaped him long before he ever met Muhammad Ali or Mike Tyson. Long before the world called him a boxing mogul, Don King was the ruler of a criminal empire. In the 1950s and 1960s, Cleveland was a hostile battleground for young black men with no opportunities and no lifelines. King built his own path the only way the streets allowed, through illegal gambling, drug trade, and protection rackets that made him one of the most feared underground figures in both Cleveland and New York. His operations were brutal, efficient, and undeniable proof that King understood power long before he understood boxing. In the boxing world, already riddled with mafia control, rigged fights, and mob-regulated arenas, Don King fit right in. He wasn't just another event organizer, he was a master manipulator who understood how violence, money, and influence worked together. But the darkest chapter of his criminal life erupted in 1967 when he beat a man to death over a debt. His subsequent conviction for manslaughter sent him to prison for 4 years. For many, that would have been the end. For King, it was a rebirth. Prison didn't just punish him, it sharpened him. When he walked out, he reinvented himself as a promoter with unstoppable ambition. But the shadows of his past didn't disappear. Federal agents and law enforcement followed his every move, suspicious of his ongoing ties to organized crime. And as he climbed higher in the boxing world, his business style became as infamous as his hair, bold, intimidating, and wrapped in accusations of greed and exploitation. Still, he delivered iconic fights. Historic events with Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, and other giants were orchestrated with his trademark mix of brilliance and ruthlessness. Behind the glittering lights, Don King remained the same street-hardened strategist who once ruled gambling dens, a man who knew that in boxing, as in crime, the strongest survive only by being smarter and more ruthless than everyone else. Today, Don King stands as a living testament to the brutal truth of power. Sometimes, to rise to the top of a ruthless world, a man must first walk through the darkness. His legacy is legendary, and forever haunted by the criminal shadow that made him who he is. Number 7. Ice-T. Ice-T, born Tracy Merrow, stands today as a pioneer of gangster rap and a television icon, but his rise began far from Hollywood glamour. His early life was shaped by poverty, tragedy, and the unforgiving world of South Los Angeles street gangs. Before the fame, before the music, Ice-T was a young man fighting to survive in a landscape ruled by violence, where joining a gang wasn't a choice but a means to stay alive. In the 1970s, long before he touched a microphone, Ice-T was deeply entrenched in the Crips, one of the most feared gangs in Los Angeles. Growing up in Crenshaw with no parents and limited opportunities, he was swallowed by a world where respect came from brutality, reputation, and firepower. As a teen, he was involved in theft and drug dealing, even forming a fake faction of the Hillside Crips, a clever and desperate move to protect himself and gain status in a neighborhood that devoured the weak. The early loss, isolation, and constant pressure pushed him deeper into the criminal underworld. For Ice-T, gang life wasn't glamour, it was survival. The Crips gave him the protection and recognition he couldn't find anywhere else. Each day was a battle, each night a gamble, and each decision carried the weight of whether he would live to see another sunrise. These brutal experiences shaped him into more than a gang member. They forged a persona that later became central to his identity as an artist. When Ice-T transitioned into music, he didn't invent gangster rap, he lived it. His lyrics reflected the gritty reality he knew firsthand, turning street trauma into powerful stories that resonated with a generation ignored by mainstream America. His cool delivery and unfiltered honesty transformed him into one of hip-hop's most impactful voices. But those gang years came at a heavy cost. Ice-T faced multiple arrests, constant threats from rival gangs like the Bloods, and the psychological toll of living on the edge. The danger was unrelenting, and he knew staying in that world meant an early death. By the late 1970s, Ice-T took a drastic turn. He left gang life behind and joined the U.S. Army. That decision became the pivot that saved his future. After returning home, he fused his street experiences into art, launching a music career that revolutionized rap and brought the harsh truth of inner-city life into the national spotlight. From gang member to cultural icon, Ice-T's journey is a stunning transformation. His evolution into a rapper, actor, and influential public figure, including his long-running role on Law & Order, SVU, proves that even the darkest beginnings can ignite an unforgettable legacy. Number 8. Nat King Cole. Nat King Cole, the velvet voice of American music, the elegant pianist who melted jazz, pop, and soul into magic, was far more than a chart-topping singer. He was a pioneer, the first black entertainer to host his own national television show, a barrier breaker whose talent defined an era. But behind the polished smile and warm vocals was a story far darker than the public ever imagined. Few people know that during the 1940s, Nat King Cole found himself entangled in the shadows of Chicago's mafia-run entertainment world. Harlem and Chicago pulsed with music and creativity, yet beneath the glamour lay powerful crime syndicates controlling the biggest clubs and most profitable stages. For a black artist navigating a racist society, success often meant accepting the unspoken rules of these underworld gatekeepers. His 1946 arrest for marijuana possession became the first public hint of deeper complications, but the truth ran far beyond drugs. The entertainment industry itself was a battlefield where mob influence shaped careers, bookings, and survival. Cole faced relentless racial hostility, from cold stares to outright violence. In 1956, he was savagely attacked on stage by white supremacists, an incident that left him physically injured and emotionally shaken. According to whispers of the time, it was mob-connected protectors who intervened and helped ensure he made it out alive. Performing in mafia-controlled clubs offered Nat stability, high-profile opportunities, and real protection in a world that refused to accept a black man of his stature. Yet the price was steep: creative limitations, whispered threats, and the inescapable stain of underworld association. That 1946 arrest stayed on his record, fueling rumors he could never fully silence, despite his attempts to distance himself from criminal ties as his fame grew. Even with these shadows trailing him, Nat King Cole rose above. He won awards, redefined American popular music, and broke racial barriers on television, paving the way for generations to come. When he died in 1965, he left behind not only timeless songs, but a legacy marked by courage, resilience, and unanswered questions about the mafia-tinged world he once navigated. After 1946, he maintained no confirmed criminal connections, yet the echoes of those early struggles remain a haunting chapter of his extraordinary story. Number 9. Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg, born Calvin Broadus Jr., is celebrated worldwide as a rap icon, cultural figure, actor, and entertainer. But long before the platinum albums and global fame, he was a young man shaped by East Long Beach's harsh realities, a neighborhood where poverty, violence, and the notorious Rollin' 20s Crips ruled everyday life. His rise from those shadows to international superstardom remains one of hip-hop's most dramatic transformations. In the 1980s and early 1990s, teenage Snoop was deeply embedded in the Crips. For kids growing up in East Long Beach, the world offered a brutal choice: join a gang for protection or stand alone as prey. Snoop chose survival. Crime quickly became routine: drug dealing, carrying illegal weapons, and constant street fights. In those days, Calvin Broadus was known not for talent, but for his ties to the blue-flagged underworld that shaped his neighborhood. The Crips weren't just a gang, they were the culture. Respect was earned through toughness, loyalty, and fearlessness. Poverty made fast money from drugs appealing, even when the risks were deadly. Yet those dark moments would later become the raw truth fueling Snoop Dogg's music. The authenticity of his lyrics came from real scars, real danger, and real survival. Ironically, it was his gang connections that opened unexpected doors. Through street networks, Snoop's early recordings reached Dr. Dre, leading to one of the most influential partnerships in rap history. Their work on The Chronic and the release of Snoop's debut album Doggy Style in 1993 catapulted him from local hustler to global sensation. But fame arrived during one of the deadliest eras of the Crips, Blood's rivalry. In 1993, Snoop was charged in a high-profile murder case, a moment that nearly destroyed his rising career. Though he was acquitted on grounds of self-defense, the accusation left a permanent shadow, especially alongside previous arrests for drugs and weapons. After the trial, Snoop began distancing himself from gang life. His career expanded beyond rap. Films like Training Day, television appearances, and reality shows showcased new sides of him. Though he no longer participates in gang activity, his Crip identity remains a defining part of his image, a symbol of where he came from and what he overcame. Today, at 54, Snoop Dogg stands as one of hip-hop's most beloved and enduring figures. But behind the smooth voice and laid-back persona lies a turbulent youth spent inches from death, a past that shaped the legend the world knows now. Number 10. Coolio. From the streets of Compton to the global roar of gangsta's paradise, Coolio, born Leon Ivy Jr., carried a life story far more turbulent than most fans ever knew. Rising in the 1990s as a rapper and actor, he became a cultural force, giving voice to young people trapped in cycles of violence and poverty. But long before the fame, before the awards and world tours, Coolio walked through one of the most dangerous chapters any young black man could face: life inside Compton's Crips. In the 1980s, Compton was a battlefield where poverty, racism, and gang warfare collided. For teens growing up there, the Crips weren't just a gang, they were a shield against a world that refused to protect them. Coolio, raised in hardship and surrounded by chaos, slipped into gang life as a matter of survival. Joining meant safety, respect, and a chance to stand tall in a neighborhood where weakness could get you killed. Drug dealing, carrying guns, and running from rival gangs, especially the Bloods, became part of his daily rhythm. He wasn't just drifting through the streets, he was a functioning piece of the Crips' machinery. Compton's rules were cruel. Power belonged to those willing to bleed for it. Coolio endured gunfire, violent turf wars, and the constant threat of death, each day pushing him deeper into a world many never escaped. But those same experiences became the fuel that powered his artistic fire. His arrests, his sleepless nights on the block, the trauma of living on the edge, all of it shaped the gritty truth in his music. When Gangsta's Paradise dropped in 1995, it wasn't just a hit, it was a confession, a reflection of the life he barely survived. It shot him to worldwide fame and marked his break from the gang life that had nearly consumed him. Even after turning to music and roles in films like Daredevil, Coolio's past followed him. The gangster image stuck to him, intertwined with his ongoing struggles with addiction. Though he walked away from the Crips, the scars remained, emotionally and physically. Coolio's story ended in 2022 with a fatal drug overdose, a tragic closing chapter for someone who survived so much violence only to be undone by another kind of danger. Yet his legacy echoes loudly, a child of Compton who turned pain into poetry, triumph into tragedy, and left behind a voice the world will never forget. Thank you for watching until the end. Behind every spotlight lies a story the world rarely sees, and we're here to uncover those hidden truths. If you want more deep dives into the scandals, struggles, and untold journeys of music and entertainment legends, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Stay with us for the next videos, where every story reveals another shadow, another secret, and another side of fame the world was never meant to see.